Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Africa 360. Today I'm going to share with us one of the landmark speeches by the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkurumah. This speech was given at the All African People's Congress that was held in Ghana in the year 1958. This speech, in my opinion, is like the roadmap to what we call Africa's economic freedom, political freedom, and the roadmap to Africa's prosperity. Basically, Professor Kwame Nkrumah begins the speech by telling us what is ailing Africa, and he goes ahead to give a solution, and towards the end of his speech, he also gives us a warning that we are not only facing a threat from the West, that as much as the African countries might get independence, that there is a possibility of future imperialism coming in other forms and from other areas other than the West. And that seems to be a vision that actually came true, because as we speak, already the world is talking about China being the new colonial power in Africa, but in quite a different way. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that have emerged in the recent years is the many conferences that other countries are having with Africa. Conferences like the Turkey African Conference, of course you have the China African Conference, we have conference between Arab countries and Africa. So it seems that there's more or less a new scramble for Africa in our time. So just to bring some of these thoughts to life, I'll go through his speech that was made in December 1958 at the All African People's Conference in Accra, Ghana. So the speech is as follows. Our enemies are many, and they stand really to pounce upon and exploit our every weakness. They play upon our vanities and flatter us in every kind of way. They tell us that this particular person or that particular country has greater or more favorable potentialities than the other. They do not tell us that we should unite, that we are as good as we are able to make ourselves once we are free. So here Kwame Nkrumah is reminding people at this conference And of course,
Every day is an
all of
opportunity for a
us,
fresh start.
of the fact uh, that the intention of the imperialist, who is referring to as our enemies, is not for us to prosper. They aim to ensure that we are divided by creating conflict among ourselves, the African countries, and they do not want us to recognize our strength and our potential that majorly comes through us being united. He goes ahead and says, we want therefore to develop our own community and an African personality. Others may feel that they have evolved the very best way of life, but we are not bound like selfish imitators to accept it as our mold. If we find the methods used by others we are good, we shall adopt or adapt them. If we find them unsuitable, we shall reject them. So he calls Africans at this Congress to form their own authentic African identity, not just to merely copy and paste other people's way of life. And I think what he had in mind is for Africans to have their own dignity, to develop their own self esteem, to be proud of who they are. I think he was basically trying to tell all of us that our ways are not necessarily inferior as we have been uh, made to know, to believe. You accept the fact that there might be certain things that are bad or certain things that are better from outside, but not everything. There are certain things that we can preserve to preserve our identity and to preserve our dignity. Things as our names and the way we give ourselves names, they're just names. They cannot be inferior. You must not drop your African name to have a foreign name. There's nothing wrong with you wearing proudly your African name. Just to give an example, he goes ahead to say, fighter for African freedom, I appeal to you in the sacred name of Mother Africa to leave this conference resolved to rededicate yourselves to the task of forming the political parties in your respective countries. A broad political front based upon one common fundamental aim and objective: the speedy liberation of your territories. So he's asking, at this point, only Ghana is independent, and he's asking Africans at this Congress, the political leaders, to go back to their countries and with a new resolve, with a new energy, to ensure that their countries are independent as fast as possible. And of course, his aim is that that eventually Africa becomes a united nation. He then says, don't let us also forget that colonialism and imperialism may come to us yet in a different guise, not necessarily from Europe. We must let ourselves to be able to recognize this when it raises its head and prepare ourselves to fight against it. So he forewarned that a time might come that others, nations, might have an interest in being the new imperialists. But as far as I'm concerned, it seems um, we didn't heed to this warning. Then says, this mid 20th century is Africa's. This is the decade of Africa's independence. Forward then to independence, now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa. I think this speech was brief and quite powerful. I think that this is one speech that Pan-Africanists, or those who have hope of a better united African continent in the future, should always refer to as the blueprint in their fight for prosperous and a greater African nation. That is all from Africa 360 today. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share for more nuggets such as this. Thank you and bye-bye.